So underneath the event is the attachment pattern, not just in a Bowlby sense, avoidant or chaotic, disorganized or
Anxious.
ambivalent. It's not the theory, it's the way the nervous system was programmed. It's the marinade in which our client was cooked, if you like.
Mark Brayne, welcome back to the Art and Science of EMDR, and thank you for joining us.
Extremely good to be back with you. Having spent those 5 sessions with you and your cohort, taking people through attachment-informed EMDR in detail. First time we've done that, and we're going to be doing it again. And
Yes.
looking forward to meeting you, seeing you in person for the first time in Denver in late September as well. So
Right. We should
very
talk
exciting.
about that too. And just to let our members know, we are going to have a giveaway. So Bilateral Base was generous to give 1 year of pro membership and their brand new virtual buzzers that I know Mark has. I don't have them yet.
I could show you. I could show the brand new virtual buzzers.
Yeah.
No, they're real buzzers. So, they're real buzzers, remotely generated. There we go. They go off
right.
of USB at the client end, and you can start and stop them.
Right. So we are going to do a giveaway at the end for the people who participated in our weekly challenges that are related to AI-EMDR. We did the first week, we did actually about artificial intelligence EMDR, which we had really, really interesting discussions. So, we've been talking about attachment-informed EMDR, you and I, over the last, 3 years or so. But now that I've taken the course, I feel like we can go more in depth. But for those of us who don't know or not familiar with attachment-informed EMDR, can you explain what it is and how is it different from the standard protocol?
Okay. Well, first of all, perhaps a little bit of history. AI, of course, is confusing because it could also be understood as artificial intelligence, could also be understood as all Ireland. I've got 3 AIs running. I'm quite keen on sort of ChatGPT, and I've got a picture that I got ChatGPT to generate for me to illustrate a story about the kind of targets we need to look for. So there's that AI. There's All Ireland, and I'm now a member of EMDR All Ireland, which is rather fun. And the attachment informed, just very briefly, the history here, of course, all of you, I guess, are enthusiasts for basic EMDR as trained on in your basic training, and Shapiro and the last 30 years plus of that, the walk in the park and everything that you do with your clients. And I met Laurel Parnell in 2014, trained with her. And it was 2013 when I first read her books. And for me, the lights went on 10 years after learning the basics of EMDR. I'm trained as a transpersonal psychotherapist, integrative psychotherapist. And so I was already, working very creatively, should we say, with the standard protocol. And when I read Laurel's books and met her, the lights went on. I thought, yes, it just transformed my practice overnight. And then life being what it is, things move on. And at the beginning of the pandemic, Laurel and I parted ways. And also I was really keen to develop her ideas further, just as she had developed Shapiro's ideas further. I mean, this is what happens. People pick up ideas and they get enthusiastic and they sort of make them their own. I'm autistic, fairly recently diagnosed, which is quite entertaining and interesting. I'm just about to turn 74. So I see structures, I see patterns, and I saw patterns in what Laurel Parnell was doing. She's a brilliant clinician, and I watched her working. And I've distilled out the sort of the structure, the architecture, the grammar, if you like, of the language of EMDR from an attachment-informed, attachment-focused perspective. So we changed the terminology from attachment-focused to attachment-informed in 2020. And that's what all my training is about. And that's also the heart of my book on Amazon, Unleash Your EMDR, Release the Magic. It's very thin at the moment. Well, it's about 100 pages, but it needs to be, there's lots more I would need to write in it. But we've developed it and taken it forward and do a lot of trainings now online. And it's got a lot of new ideas. I keep having them, unfortunately. So people who know me think, oh, I've just about got what he's training. And then I have a whole bunch of new ideas. So I've got a few that I might share with you today, if you're keen.
Yeah, that would be
And what
great.
way is it different? Good.
Yes, Mark, I think that one of the biggest differences that I recognize is you talk about 4 levels of trauma, and maybe you can elaborate on that more, but you're talking about the level 1, which is, this is what we learn in basic EMDR training. That's what Shapiro talked about. This is really great if we're working on single adult trauma, if a person had, perfect childhood, which nobody ever does, but in hypothetically had perfect childhood, and then last week they had a car accident, they need to do EMDR. Level 1 works great, but I think level 2, I want you to talk about all levels, but especially about level 2, the attachment, what happened around that, and not just the event itself.
That's the central difference. That's the central development of what I call attachment-informed EMDR. If we take standard EMDR as finding an event, desensitizing it, staying out of the way as far as possible, trusting the AIP, adaptive information processing capacity of the human brain, to do the business, you can have amazing sessions with clients who are ready and able to do that. But actually, if you think about targeting, EMDR is distinctive from any other therapy that I've ever studied in that it targets particular moments and then uses bilateral stimulation. Those are the 2 really distinctive things. But what is a target? A target can be an event, but actually, if you think about it, there's the presenting past is a target, a trigger, somebody's triggered, they've got a pervasive feeling, which is about the past. They've got a future fear, which is also informed by their past experience. And then in the past, you've got stories that come up that aren't actually at the root of why the client is the way they are. I encourage my trainees and my supervisees and my consultees to always be curious, how did this person get to be the way they are? What's it really about? Now, the big shift is it's beyond trauma. That's why we put it in the headline. And I think however useful and revolutionary the focus on trauma has been in the last 30, 40 years since DSM-3 and PTSD and Judith Lewis Herman and trauma-informed care, these are hugely important developments. But actually, nobody comes into therapy because of what happened to them, the bad things that happened to them. They come into therapy because their nervous system is not able to metabolize what happened. So underneath the event is the attachment pattern, not just in a bulby sense, avoidant or chaotic, disorganized or ambivalent. It's not the theory, it's the way the nervous system was programmed. It's the marinade in which our client was cooked, if you like, from the moment of conception, and actually also including epigenetic and historical and just species-related survival responses. And it all comes down to survival, really deep down. So the complexity and the richness of the client experience that determines how their system deals with stuff, life, big and small, that's actually the target. And what I call the signal in the noise, if you drill down through a client presentation, you'll find the signal is not the rupture, but the quality or absence of repair. If you think rupture and repair is the fundamental dynamic of how how animal systems, just life evolves, survives. The body, a life form, is always looking out for rupture and trying to heal it. And if it can't, we die, basically. So EMDR needs to what we need to do with our clients is to get right through the clutter, if you like, the skeletons in the cupboard, through the noise, and not get knocked off course. And bridging, now this is Parnell's utterly brilliant adjustment of the standard protocol. Everything I advocate, by the way, is in accordance with the standard protocol, as I understand the standard protocol. I don't train or advocate anything that isn't in Shapiro's third edition. But a lot of what I train is sort of in passing, oh, maybe you don't necessarily need a positive cognition in phase 3. Oh, maybe you can use eye movement, not use eye movements, but use other kind of forms of tapping. So Shapiro's third edition allows for a lot of quote deviation. And I think there's a serious problem in the EMDR global community that the system, the advocacy, the training of EMDR has got hung up on the detail. A lot of it is not actually what Shapiro intended it. She envisaged a comprehensive psychotherapy, EMDR therapy, which is not just about sticking to protocols.
Right. And we actually talked about it yesterday in our last module, that in the third edition of her EMDR book, she explicitly talked about allowing more flexibility, that it's not a rigid method. And a lot of the people who've been trained in, I don't know, the 80s or early 90s, or even, late 90s, might still think that this is a rigid approach. There's no left, there's no right. You read every word from the standard protocol. And I liked what one of the, I don't know if you had a chance to see that, Mark, one of the members of our first cohort just posted today, and she compared you to a jazz musician of
Yes,
how,
that's a lovely quote there.
yes.
Shall I just read it out? Actually, I copied it out. It was wonderful. I can't tell you how much these sessions have meant to me. I'll write much longer and dream on the material and ideas that have come to work. I want to dive into the EMDR dream work for a long, long time. Creativity is so alive in your teaching and clearly with your clients. It's like listening to a jazz improviser, attuned to every beat and color, every move and bridge, which is rather fun. And in a sense, that's what I seek to do with clients. I'm me, you're you, but we have to craft our psychotherapy with our clients uniquely for each client and each session. And just following a scripted protocol, I mean, how many of you have actually worked with people who really are just single incident, and once that's ticked off, all is well? I mean, I've worked
Yeah,
with
0.1% maybe of our
I mean,
clients.
for me, I've worked with 1,000 people. I counted them up the other day over the years, and I'd say 3 in 1,000, literally. Sometimes you can do amazing work just focusing on the big thing that they bring. But
Right.
people come to therapy because a rich complexity, not necessarily complex PTSD, but maybe an innocence, an inability of the nervous system just to deal with the knockabout of life. They haven't developed the necessary emotional calluses, the healthy calluses, the resilience in childhood, because maybe they were too protected. Maybe mother loved them too much and they're falling apart in relationship because mother did everything for them with the best of intention. So if we use bridging, the right brain, I personally hate the term float back. I absolutely loathe the term float back because it's a dissociative experience. But bridging, and this is again Laurel Parnell's brilliant distillation of the best of Shapiro's EMDR. It's called float back in the sense that when you get stuck, you say, let's think about the first time in your life when you had that experience. But if we ask the right brain, if we use the presenting issue as the portal into the presenting past, if there's one thing you could change today, what would it be? People come into therapy to change tomorrow, not to change the past. So we use tomorrow, the moment now, the anticipation of tomorrow, as our way in. So we don't, in this way of working, we don't just go past, present, and future in that order and take great big trauma histories and put them on spreadsheets and things and sort of slog our way chronologically through in the hope that it's going to be okay in the long run. We use what the clients bring. Why are you here? If there's a picture that could capture your distress about yourself in the world today, yesterday, tomorrow, I've got that email about my job possibly being on the line. I know I've got to meet my new mother-in-law tomorrow. I'm just feeling nervous. I wake up every morning with dread. I don't know what it's about. Whatever it is, picture, emotion, body, belief, drop back in time, go back as far as you can, first place you land, and the right brain takes us there. It's quite breathtaking. I've got one or two colleagues, I can see one who's just done part one.
Yes.
And
Okay. So I have to stop and ask you, image, emotion, body, belief, that is not the way we learned it in basic EMDR training. Can you explain why? Why image, emotion, body, belief?
Well, let's take, I mean, I have to be, so I was going to say I have to be careful. I'm getting less careful as time goes on. I mean, these
I
are,
like that. I like that. Less careful.
this has been dangerous territory. I mean, I don't want to talk about the politics of EMDR, but you all know about the EMDR thought police, and fearing the Spanish Inquisition. Always expect this. You never expect the Spanish Inquisition, as they said in Monty Python. A psychotherapist who is in fear of getting it wrong is not in service to their client. You can get things very badly wrong in psychotherapy, but if you're trying to tick boxes to please your supervisor, where's the authenticity? You need to be authentic, congruence, unconditioned positive regard, empathy. These matter. So the standard protocol, I think, is brilliant for single incident. Standard protocol phase 3. Actually, let me just go back. 8 phases, 3 prongs, AIP, standard procedural steps, return to target. The fundamental architecture of EMDR as conceived, put together by Shapiro 35 years ago, is a very, very good, solid framework. And everything that I train and advocate fits that, not because she says so, because it works. It's brilliant. You all know it's brilliant. Harry Potter and Dumbledore in big cheesy relationship, history taking, preparation, assessment, desensitization, well, processing really in phase 4, installation or tapping it in. The language is secondary. The jargon is secondary. Body scan, closure, and reevaluation. So fantastic structure. But in phase 3, I wonder how many of you, and we haven't got many videos on, so I can't. It'd be lovely if people could put their videos on so I could sort of see some faces. It'd be much more fun. Lovely. That's great. Thank you. Oh, lovely. Naomi, Amy, Anne, Angela, Ingrid. Oh, nice to see you too. Super. Some old friends there. I'm sure that many of you started out, as I did with EMDR, thinking that EMDR really is phase 3 and phase 4. So it's NC, PC, VOC, emotion, SUDS, body, go, and then it's, 24 passes, stop, what are you getting? 24, what are you getting now? 24, keep going, 2 positives or 2 nothing, then back to target. Oh, try again. Oh, we haven't got any more time. Let's go to the safe place, put everything in a vault, and see you next week. Oh my goodness me, boy, can that be counterproductive. The thing about phase 3, NCPC, VOC, and so on, is let me just ask you, so the event image where you start, is that right brain or left brain? It's sort of right brain, really, isn't it? But it's being accessed left brain. It's all bit both. NC, what are the negative words? What are the words that go with that picture that express your negative belief about yourself now? Left brain or right brain? Just point left or right. Left brain, yeah. What would you rather believe about yourself, PC? Left brain. How true does that feel on a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 is not true at all and 7 is as true as you possibly imagine? Left brain. It's a number, left brain. Okay, so let's go back to the nasty picture and I'm unsafe, I'm going to die, whatever it is, I'm dirty, it's my fault. What are you feeling? Right brain. What on a 0 to 10? How badly are you feeling that? 10 is the worst possible. Left brain. Body, right brain. So the poor old client, the poor old therapist. There are some clients for whom this is absolutely the right thing to do, totally, because they're still in their head, But there are many clients with complexity where this derails EMDR catastrophically. Let's not beat about the bush. And also the admonition, you've got to have the positive cognition, you've got to have it in the same domain. That, I'm going to name this bluntly. That seemed like a good idea at the time. And Shapiro was coming from a cognitive therapy background. She was a cognitive therapist. So that's the way she thought. And cognitions and numbers are left brain. The trauma, the distress, the dysfunction, the maladaptive response is not cognitive. The cognition is the COMET, is the observation. It's right brain limbic system survival informed. How did this person learn to survive in the world to get their needs met? Was it safe to talk about your feelings? Was it safe to tell your mother that the neighbor was abusing you? It really comes down to safety. So when you're working with complexity, which I think we do, 95% of the time, complexity in the sense of life, not complex PTSD, just life. Phase 3 is image, emotion, right brain, body, right brain, belief, left, right. I can show you how this works. If you'd be willing to do this, I could do a joint bridge as I do on my trainings, and it's really, really interesting. It would be very helpful if as many of you can show your videos as possible, because I'll ask a question for you to put your hands up. Do you think, Rotem, could we do a joint bridge?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think there are 3 core conditions for successful EMDR. I used to say case conceptualization, and case conceptualization, just in different fonts. I've actually changed the slide there on that one, literally for the last training. It's actually target identification. Case conceptualization informed target identification. If you get the right target and work with it well, EMDR will work. Now, the target is not the bad thing that happened. I mean, it can be, rape, nightmares, flashbacks, war, bombs. Absolutely, it can be. NCPC work the standard protocol in its normal form, 100%. But if you're targeting something that is more a question of the quality of the repair rather than the event itself, the right brain and the bridge will take you there. It's astonishingly accurate.
Say more about that, the quality of the repair. What does that mean?
Well,
I think that's the key issues that distinguishes attachment-informed EMDR.
That's right. Okay. So quality of repair is, I come back to what I was saying, it's not the event itself. And the thing about standard protocol, that you do this event, desensitize it, this event, desensitize it, this event, desensitize it. But actually everything is connected. And if you're working on the repair, the quality of the client's experience of the maternal, mainly maternal, but family, mother really matters. We're mammals. We're all, we're born of a female body. The relationship with the mother, the experience of the mother in the earliest formative moments and years and months is absolutely central to how the nervous system learns to be in the world. We all knock about in the womb 9 months before we turn up. So the quality of the repair, stuff happens. We've got 2 little grandsons, 4 and 2, and it's like it's just like a continued personal development workshop. It's fascinating. They fall off their bike, or they have an argument, or the cat scratches them. Or the other day, the story I tell about the 2-year-old is that in November, it's his brother's birthday. He had a candle. He had a cake for the 4th birthday. And so what do you do with candles on a cake? You blow them out. So he'd seen candles, blow them out. Candles, you blow candles out. 3 weeks later, it's Advent, and the German tradition. So my wife is German, and their grandmother is German. We have 4 candles on a thing. So the first candle is lit. So the 2-year-old sees the candle. What happens?
He blows it out.
He blows it out. Oh, don't do that. And so there's this shock response from his grandmother, and he, because he's been criticized. And you can see his brain thinking, hang on a moment. He's not thinking, but the right brain. Candles, you always blow candles out. That's the rule. That's what he's learned. But you don't here. This is not a logical thing. It's not a left brain thing. He hasn't got one. He hasn't got a frontal cortex yet, because he's only 2. Only comes online at 7. And he went, in his shock, he went silent. And he slowly sort of collapsed to the floor at this sort of time frame. And he was quiet on the floor, and then he started wailing. An absolute wail of despair. Now, you can imagine an anxious, annoyed, controlling mother, or a father, I've been one of them myself, saying, oh, you silly boy, you should know that candles, you don't blow this. He doesn't know that. So you could criticize him and say, you bad boy, you shouldn't have done that. So he'll internalize that as a profound formative experience. And decades later, this could be a target in EMDR, because the world suddenly is not safe. But what we did we soothed, come here, big hug, took about half an hour to quieten. Half an hour later, it's over. It's gone. It's completely metabolized. He moves on. So there's the rupture, and it's the quality of the repair. Take the little boy or little girl who's lost in a supermarket around the aisle and is terrified because they're 3, 4, they're a toddler, big grown-up world. They're so frightened. Mummy finds them and screams at them, "You silly boy," I don't know, whatever. Rupture, big existential rupture. If I'm not with mother, I'm going to be eaten by hyenas. That's the evolutionary dynamic from 200,000 years on the plains of Africa, and we haven't changed since. And the response from the primary caregiver, from the adults who are meant to keep things safe and stop me being eaten by African wolves, is doubly traumatizing. I was terrified, and now I'm terrified of of my primary caregiver. That resonates on, and the bridge takes us into these response experiences. It is a paradigm shift. It's beyond trauma. And I could show you a slide on that, actually, which is a new one using ChatGPT, if you'd like me to. Shall I show that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, right. Let me share a screen. It's always fun to share a screen. That's sort of what I do. So here is, there's a new research paper out, lead author Ad de Jong in the Journal of Traumatic Stress. Researchers demonstrated direct association between proper implementation of the so-called EMDR standard protocol and therapeutic outcomes. The strict adherence to the protocol is considered crucial to ensuring the robustness and empirical effectiveness of EMDR. Maxfield and Hire, 2002, still being quoted more than 20 years later. We desperately need research on this stuff. Right. Let me find the slide, because I disagree with that. I think strict adherence to the standard protocol as understood, as defined then, is becoming a problem. So
Yes.
here we are.
We have some, Mark, we have some leaders in the field who teach that in their trainings, and they're bringing research that, the only way to do right EMDR is to stick to the standard protocol. And if you don't do it, you will do it wrong.
Well, I disagree. And I think most of us would disagree. We wouldn't be here if we, empirical evidence, all of us deviate from the standard protocol. All of us do. And some of us are really frightened of talking to our supervisors about it. That is not good.
Right.
Targets. Anything we go back to, as in return to targets, a distinctive feature of EMDR. But there are a number of different kinds of target. There's the presenting past, as I was saying, future fear, flash forward if you like. Present trigger, an old friend, comes to visit, as it were, and takes over. Pervasive feeling, you can bridge from a shape there. The actual past can be a trauma in its own right, level 1. The 4 levels of trauma being rupture. Second level is repair, quality of or absence of repair. Third level is the intergenerational. And the 4th level is the collective trauma, the group trauma, the national trauma, the identity that's handed down the generations. There's a stepping stone, which is on your way in. It isn't the reason they are the way they are. It's already a consequence of their earlier experience, but it can be a very big one. We have what I call as a portal, a reference point for going, a point here, not just the trauma, but the reference point, going down the channels, out, round and back. Now, this is the shift. This is beyond trauma. And every approach needs a jargon. So I'm calling it a root formative experience. A root for an RFE, and it's not necessarily trauma. Now, this is here, the picture I wanted to show you. When you bridge, you very often go back to a little girl, a little boy on their own, maybe in their bedroom, and they're listening to mummy and daddy arguing, or they're playing outside the house on their own. It's not a trauma. It's nothing that would be put on a trauma checklist or 10 worst things, but it illustrates the quality or the absence of repair. Now look at this one. We bridge back to a little boy playing with a bicycle in the garden. How come we've bridged from a presenting distress to a little boy playing happily aged 5 on his bicycle in the garden? That's the problem. It's mother's anxiety, it's the response, it's the marinade in which he is being formed. So it's not there's no event, it's the quality of moment by moment experience. One tremendously important thing I always say is I'm not putting mothers on trial. Every single mother I've ever met or heard of or had um, does the best they can. They really genuinely do. And I say, I'm afraid I don't necessarily think that's true of all fathers. But the primary evolutionarily determined experience of the infant is in the context of its experience, her experience of mainly maternal response. If mother is safe, the child is safe. If mother doesn't feel safe, anxious, controlling, numb, depressed, whatever it is, the child doesn't feel safe in an evolutionary sense and goes into survival mode and develops survival informed patterns, if you like, parts that might turn up in IFS, protector parts or firefighter parts, manager parts, and so on. So this is the paradigm shift. It's beyond trauma. So there we are. That was my slide. I hope that sort of helps bring that
Yeah,
one to life.
absolutely. Yes.
That was ChatGPT this afternoon did that one for me.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Mark, I think this is our time to maybe do a little bit of the demo that you wanted to do and have people ask you some questions. So
Go for it.
before that, I just want to say thank you, Mark Brayne, for joining us again, the Art and Science of EMDR.